Savage. What's going on, Savages? Welcome to another episode of the Savage Snowflake podcast with me, Jeff Leach, your friend, your lover. Wait, are we there yet? Maybe we're boyfriend and girlfriend already. I'm definitely your parent. I'm your daddy. I could be your mother. I could be an auntie who comes over and gets a little white wine drunk in the afternoon on a Saturday at a barbecue, and everyone's like, "Oh no, Auntie Jeff's like getting her left boob out," and I'm like, "Leave me alone. I'm divorced. This is who I am now." I'm that guy. And you guys are the wonderful listeners who tune in every single week to the Savage Snowflake podcast. So first of all, thank you. I love you very much. If you are listening to us on iTunes or on SoundCloud or Spotify or Google Play, do me a favor. It will cost you 0 cents to do it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also leave us a little review. If you are enjoying the podcast, if you have been enjoying all the different guests that I've brought on, do me a favor, leave a little review, give it 5 stars. That makes such a massive difference to the charts. It puts us in front of the eyes of more listeners, and I'd be very grateful to you. We're also available on YouTube as well. Every single episode is in video format, so if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go to youtube.com/Jeff Leach TV and hit that subscribe and that notification bell as well, and then it will let you know all about new episodes. Thank you very much to all of the wonderful supporters at patreon.com/Savage Snowflake. If you are an earning individual, maybe you got a job, maybe you got a wealthy parents, maybe you're just a criminal and you're stealing money from the poor and needy, do me a favor, pass some of that love back to me at patreon.com/Savage Snowflake. You can donate as little as $1 a month and you'll get various shout outs. You might get your face up here like my boy Dan TB. If you donate a little bit more money, I'll also write your postcards every month, all sorts of sweet deals, so go and check that out. And finally, thank you very much to our sponsors, manscaped.com, the finest purveyors of man trimming equipment. I use the Lawnmower 2.0 to take my man tough downstairs out to Smoothtown every single week. I do it maybe every 2 weeks, actually. Trim the old ball hair, keep my bad boys smooth and clean. If you want to do that for your loved one, for your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, maybe you're banging a cousin, I don't care. I'm not trying to judge you. I just want you to save 20% off at manscaped.com. Use code SAVAGE. You get 20% off, free shipping on all orders, and a lovely free leather travel bag worth $50. And of course, thank you to Boundless Tech as well, the finest purveyors of vaping technology. If you love a little smoke, maybe you live in California on the West Coast over where I am, or in New York City where it's finally legal, and you like to smoke flower or resin, distillate or isolate, check out all of their wonderful products. You've got the Terp Pen. It's only $30 right now, and it's an amazing, thin little contraption with incredible battery life that means you can smoke resin, distillate, etc., very easily and on the go. Also, code SAVAGE over there will save you a whopping 25% off every order. So make sure you check them out, bndlstech.com. Jung, jung. That's my phone signaling that I have a guest on the podcast today. Hello, guest. How are you?
Hello. That's what a neat little link there.
Everyone likes my intros because they're like, oh, he's like legitimately a professional host.
It's like you've done that before, rather than just fumbling through the way I do when I'm hosting
88 times, I want to say now. I think this will be the 88th time. I'm not sure what episode number we're on. I think it's 88.
Well, you say that, but like we have, I think, the podcast I do has maybe 4 times as many episodes, and we're a shambles still. So
you can get there. I can teach you whatever you need to do for that eloquence.
And we've never had anything that shaves our balls either.
Well, not yet. I can give you one. I'll give you a Lawnmower 2.0. I've got some to give to guests. I'll give you one to take away. Have you got a hairy tough downstairs?
I mean, yeah, my family's from the Middle East.
I'm going to revolutionize you and your lovely lady's sex life.
I won't mention it either. I'll just come back from a podcast with shaved balls and just go, how was the podcast?
That's what we're going to do halfway through. That's how we're going to... It's going to be a second point in advertising. I should introduce you.
Hello.
So this is Matt Kirshen, a wonderful comedian, a writer, a performer. He's been over here in the US. Obviously, you can hear by the accent. He is an expat. He's a Brit, just like me. He's a real Brit. He's like one of the people that when you think British, you think, oh, Matt Kirshen's a lovely British boy, isn't he? Not only has he written for the Jim Jeffries show, he also wrote on the last season of Arrested Development. On top of that, he was in Last Comic Standing, one of the finalists in that. And he's been performing all over the country, running setlist shows, doing all sorts of big TV on True TV. You've been on a number of those. Comedy Knockout, right? You were on that as well.
I wrote on that too. That was a little fun gig.
He's working.
I'm getting by. And we just spent a week together in Vegas.
It was pretty fucking beautiful.
Showing the people of the Comedy Cellar in Vegas the 2 different types of English guy.
But we almost became one.
Yep.
A little bit. I'm normally the gregarious rock and roll and let's get drunk and then get naked and dance on the tables. And you're normally like, well, I mean, we could also go and check out a museum. But this trip, whilst you did do some museums and I did a little bit of dancing with my shirt off, I was pretty placid and chill.
You were pretty chill,
and you were a lot more rock and roll than I was expecting, Matt.
Well, having said that, you did take us to So I went with you to your friend's compound, the sort of...
Ferguson's downtown
exactly,
crew. Yeah,
the sort of
Vegas.
burnery, creatory compound. And we went down there after a show in a big party bus. And I was like, oh, okay, what have I got myself in for? And then I spent most of the night playing board games.
Yeah.
So that shows you
Which, by the way, was fine. That's what I did as well.
Yeah.
It was...
I learned how to play Go from a very nice venture capitalist.
A venture capitalist.
An investor.
Alex Hsu. Yeah.
Lovely
Alex Hsu.
guy.
Lovely dude.
Lovely, smart guy who whipped me at a board game I'd not played before, but
Bro,
I very much enjoyed playing it.
I played chess and you kicked my ass at chess, and I feel like that's the level, that's where I'm at right now. I'm in the place in life at 35 where I want to take psychedelic drugs, which we didn't do that night, but I want to take like mushrooms, but then play chess with people on mushrooms.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like I want it to be rock and roll, but I also don't want to wake up with a hangover or feeling bad about myself, and I want to expand my mind while I'm
expanded but calm, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're in a similar place.
I don't mind the occasional heavy night, but yeah, I'm in my late 30s, and it's just you get to a point where I spent my 20s in a comedy party house.
Okay. But is this back in the UK or out here?
Yeah, in the UK. I lived with, from when I was 23, I moved into, there was this sort of semi-infamous house of comics.
Is this the one where Wayne Deacon lived for many years?
Yeah,
and
he was towards the end.
He shit himself there in the bathroom and literally just shit everywhere. He was telling me a story about that. After fucking a chick, he shit himself after having sex with a girl and then couldn't go back in the bedroom.
I wasn't there for that occasion, but I don't doubt it for a second.
But you could smell it.
Because there was a long period of time around that point that I still had a room in that house, but I was mostly over in America. So I think I missed out on some of that. But there was
I can't live with comedians, man. How do you do that shit?
It was a mess. It was messy, but also it was probably the most creative and fun time of my life.
Really?
Yeah, because I was living with these brilliant people who were hilarious. We'd stay up till 4 a.m, making each other laugh constantly.
Yeah.
Stuff came out of it. Like we wrote a whole like a Radio 4 sketch show that almost entirely started with nonsense that, like, it started from 4 a.m. nonsense in the house.
Who were you living with then? Who was in that house
So at the
that time?
beginning, around that time, there was Nick Doody, Carey Marks, Phil Nickel, and then
where's Phil from? Is he UK as well?
Well, he has Scottish parents and was born in Scotland, but he grew up in Toronto.
Right, okay, because I knew he was like had a foreign.
Yeah, so he's Canadian but also British.
Yeah.
And then who else was in the house? Paul Byrne, who's Ed's younger brother.
Right.
Kirsty, who became Nick's wife.
I feel like if you're in the UK, you'll know a lot of these names from the world of comedy.
Oh yeah, and then later on, like Henning Venn moved in. Seymour Mace was there for a bit. Nick Coppin was there for a bit.
Dude, I just remember going over there once.
Yep.
Well, actually, I went over there more than once, but I remember going there once for an after party.
Uh-huh.
And it was a lot of fun, but it was fucking disgusting. Like, I've never walked into a home and felt instantaneously itchy and like I need a shower.
You get over it.
I can't. You've seen my home. I'm very neat and I'm a little OCD.
Yeah, I'm definitely... You reach a point where when I came over here, I was subletting from a friend for a while and had his spare room. And then eventually you reach the point where you're like, I need a place of my own.
I'm a grown adult. I need to not clean someone else's piss stains off the toilet
I also
seat.
need to just either live by myself or I now live with my girlfriend. So I either live by myself or with a partner. I couldn't... Yeah, I think you reach a point where you grow out of cohabitation.
Yeah, you went through... But you also went through... Living in a house with a bunch of comedians is like the best training to be comfortable living with anyone.
Yeah.
Because they're notoriously loud, drunk, drugged up, coming in late, bringing people back at all hours.
Well, there was definitely a period...
no one washes up.
There was definitely a period as well where... Like, actually, Wayne, for all his shitting himself, which I hadn't heard before, but he was actually a bit of a neat freak. Like,
really?
He actually was a sort of serial tidier.
Except when it comes to his own anus.
If I'm neat.
I've done all the washing up, mate. Yeah, but you also took a shit on the glass coffee
table. Maybe he'd overcleaned.
Yeah.
Maybe he hadn't let it drain.
I was trying to balance it out, mate. Do you know what I mean?
But, yeah, there were...
Wayne Deacon ordered a prostitute once on my birthday.
For himself or for you?
For himself,
okay.
yeah. Or you
like happy birthday, Jeff, I got myself.
No, I remember I was like, he ordered like, he turned up to my birthday party with a lot of cocaine.
Does he mind you telling this story on a podcast?
I don't give a fuck. Not my friend anymore, really. I don't really care. I mean, like, you know, we're fine, but whatever. Okay. He's the kind of guy that I like. If I was still in my party days, I'd absolutely hanging out with him.
Right.
But as nice a guy as he can be, there's other things there. Let's not go into that. But he turned up to my birthday party in Crouch End with a load of coke, which we all did, a group of us. And then when we got home, everyone else went home, and he was like, "I'm going to call a prostitute." And I was like, "Oh, I've never met a prostitute." And so he called a prostitute up to my one-bed apartment, and she turned up, and I was very fucking high, standing in a silk dressing gown.
Okay.
That I put on because that's what you do when you're high at 3-4 in the morning. And,
right.
You know, company's coming over. So I was in
kind of a kimono kind of affair.
Absolutely. Like a colourful silk dressing gown. It had like Chinese dragons all over it.
Like feels a bit kind of Boogie Nights.
It feels like I did one trip, one gap year in China and went, I'm buying this.
This is who I am now.
This is who I am now. Call me Sebastian.
Mother, father, I have found my identity.
It was pretty much that.
Right.
And then this young lady turned up, and I wasn't interested in doing anything with her. And I don't think I could have done anyway if I'd wanted to.
Right.
And he proceeded to just have sex with her on my bed whilst I kind of watched and just like went, yeah, all right. I just sat there kind of creepy playing music whilst I watched this, 50-year-old or whatever he was then, 45-year-old Australian coked up lunatic try and push his semi-flaccid penis into a young woman who was pretending like she was enjoying it, but also I could see on her face immense confusion. Oh, and he also ended up having to pay her more because there were two of us there, even though I didn't do anything.
Right.
She was just like, if there's two of you, like...
It's bonus money, right.
Yeah, and he was like, oh, fucking whatever, there you go, no, 50 quid, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm just going to watch.
Right.
And then on the way
she
out,
made her money and got her story.
Well, she made her money, and I made her a cup of tea. Oh. Before she left, I made her a nice cup of tea.
What a gent.
I was like, there you go. And she was like, and she, on the way out, gave me her number. She was like, if you ever want to spend time with me, there's my number. And I was like, oh, thanks very much. And then she left, and I screwed it up, and I put it in the bin.
Right.
I was like, as much as I'm very pro sex worker, I got lots of friends who are porn actresses and porn actors in my friendship group, and I've known escorts who are friends. Something about paying for sex kind of grosses me out a little bit.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also think it's a necessary evil for some people.
Yeah, I'm with you on the whole, like on the also got friends who would do sex work and believe it should exist, should be fully decriminalized, etc., while also not particularly being into the idea of going for it.
But would you jerk off and watch me have sex with someone else?
I think I would find a way to be in the other room.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah, no offense. I think fair play to you. You go at it. I'm sure you're in shape. You probably look great having sex, but
I look all right.
Yeah.
I look into it. I'm passionate and I'm connected.
Right, you're focused. You've got, you've got relatively good aerobic fitness.
I'm polite as well.
Well, you're making tea for people, so...
Yeah, I know. I know. I should really do stand-up about it. Like, that's the extent of my experience with a prostitute is making one a cup of tea. Right. That's it. That's all I've done. It's pretty bad. But I did go to a massage parlor once, out here in LA, actually, when I first moved here, and I was very, miserable, and I went, I'm going to go and get a massage. And I walked up the road to Little Thai Town, just went to the first massage place, and I genuinely went in for a legitimate massage. And it seemed all nice, and the ladies were all wearing white coats. So I was like, oh, they look like scientists. Surely this is the science of massage therapy here. And I got a pretty okay massage. And then at the end, the woman just grabbed my penis and was like, you want massage here? And I was like,
oh, thanks.
Well, actually, no, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I went, I mean, you've already grabbed it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And, she did what she did, and it felt really like, oh, this is not fun. Right. And then when I finished, she went to get me a towel, and then when she walked out the door, I looked up and I could see a cockroach, and it ran across the wall.
I thought you were about to say camera.
No, God forbid. No, a cockroach ran across the wall, and it stopped 2/3 of the way across. And as she closed the door, it stopped, and I saw it, and it stopped as if it was looking at me like, "You're disgusting," and then ran off into the corner of the room. And I was like, "Wow, that's yeah, I feel like that."
I mean, to be fair, all of us have jerked off / been jerked off in the presence of a cockroach, like in this city and in.
You've lived in New York,
which you have. We both have for.
Rats have watched it.
Yep.
Have you ever had crazy sexual antics like sex outside or somewhere you shouldn't have or anything of that nature?
I mean,
on an aeroplane.
Okay, so I have the most feeble attempt. By the way, I'm going to preface this by saying public and we might get caught sex never really appeals to me. Like, that's not my...
Doesn't get you worked up.
No, it's the other, like, what if you get caught? Like, that would be horrible.
Yeah,
that would be awful if we got caught.
What if I get arrested for having sex in a public place?
What if I lose my visa because I had to... because I couldn't wait until we got back to the hotel room or the apartment or whatever. But there was someone I was dating a while back, and we had the most feeble attempt at joining the Mile High Club. Because we did it, or at least tried to, on a Southwest flight from Burbank to Oakland.
Wow, that's poverty fucking right there.
Yeah, firstly,
that's
for the Brits watching this or listening to this, that's the equivalent of like an EasyJet flight from London to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
It's both in terms of quality of airline and flight duration.
You got 45 minutes... And
Max.
There's piss everywhere.
Well, you've got 45 minutes basically from wheels up to wheels down.
Yeah.
But that really means 20 to 25 minutes before after they say, all right, seatbelts off, and before they say seatbelts...
If you're anything like me, Matt, it only takes 2 minutes. So you can do it 10 times in that time.
So basically, what I'm trying to say is, I'm in the Mile High Club on a technicality.
Yeah.
Like,
You're in the Mile Low Club.
Yeah, exactly, right. If there's a Wikipedia page of members, I'm in there, but with an asterisk.
I like that. And at the bottom, what does it say? Just goes, barely made the grade.
I mean, barely. Like, tip in, it's there.
But you did it? You had sex?
But it's there, yeah, but it wasn't, it was...
Did you come to fruition?
God, no, it was like, because this is not a big bathroom either.
Oh, yeah, they're small.
So it's...
You think they're quite, when you go in to have a pee, you're like, oh, okay, there's enough room in here for me to maneuver a little bit.
No, so it was logistically... And also, she wasn't even wearing a skirt. She was wearing like trousers.
Chastity belt.
So yeah, we had to get the key, and that was in the bag.
You had to fight a dragon, and then go and visit her king father.
Exactly, and we got the riddle, but only on the third attempt. So it was a logistical mess. It was not in any way fun, and it was like, all right. Should we stop now?
You didn't enjoy it?
No.
Mate.
I mean, we enjoyed it for the story. We enjoyed it for the ridiculousness of having...
I have to say, the week that we spent in Vegas was a good education for me, which I'm in a place right now, we discussed this a little bit, where I'm trying to drop what I think as comedians we're very quick to do, which is to see someone and aesthetically or just on 2 minutes of conversation, on just a little bit of banter with a heckler or whatever it happens to be, you have to, in milliseconds inside your head, you have to make an entire rap sheet for that person.
Right.
So it's all based on preemptive or presumptuous assertions about who they are, what they do, what they like, what they don't like, what kind of a person they might be. Because you go, well, she's wearing flip-flops, she's got a fucking, she's got a American flag on her t-shirt with an eagle, she's probably a Republican.
Probably Florida.
Working, or foreigner, or like...
Florida.
Florida, exactly. She's got a blown-out perm, she's got a wedding ring on, she's got a little crucifix, so she's probably religious and blah, blah, blah. And you go, this is what will work with this person to make them laugh or to bring them out or whatever I have to do. And I'm learning that whilst it's a great skill to be able to do that and do it so instantaneously on stage, off stage it's a hindrance to me connecting with people.
I've made mistakes of that on stage as well. Like, there's been a few little lessons of gigs where there was one I remember, it was a while back now, but it was some small town outside of Liverpool.
Right. And
it was some function room that clearly was like, doubles as people have their 50th birthday party and maybe a wedding. It's that kind of, I can't remember.
Sweet 16 happens there.
Exactly. It was like a sort of fairly grubby function room with the big round tables, which always...
Rotary Club uses it on a Thursday night.
Exactly. And big round tables, which normally spell disaster for a comedy show, and a stage, one of the stages that they brought in with the big speakers on the poles and everything. And
Love it. It's just one block of
Exactly.
stage.
It looks like a conference, and the average age was probably 50-something as well, and I just looked at this, and Liverpool and its surroundings are not always the easiest place to gig either, particularly if you're a southerner.
Yeah.
So I just looked at this like, okay, well, this is death. And it was a joy of a gig. Like, it was an absolute peach of a gig. And that was one of those sort of came away just like chastising myself for my preconceptions about what they were going to be like.
But you still went on with the right energy to have the great gig.
I still went on planning to have, at least trying to have a good gig. But it definitely, there was an adjustment a few minutes in where I was like, oh, okay, shoulders back, time to sort of ease into this, and I can take a bit more time with material, and I wasn't sort of, front foot getting in there and starting to enjoy myself. But yeah, that was one of those little lessons of just not trying to not prejudge an audience.
This is a very hard practical lesson to put into a life lesson to put into practice.
Yeah.
But it's one that's really fucking important, and it's really important for the growth of everyone as an individual to go, first of all, if I look at something and I think it's going to be shit, then it's probably going to be shit. But if I look at it and go, there's potential for this to be great, I will find the way to make it great. That's a very simple idea, but it's one that's so hard to put into practice regularly.
Yeah.
But what I was relating to earlier was the fact that I'm now trying to drop the preconceptions. And even with you, look, people who are watching this on YouTube, or even just listening to your voice, they'll go, he's a well-spoken, mildly RP, clipped, nice looking guy. If they're looking at your camera, you've got a nice shirt, you're a fresh faced guy, you have a permanent smile, which is just due to muscles in your face.
It is.
That constantly keeps you smiling.
Yeah, I've got resting, just saw myself on the Jumbotron face.
I wish I liked that. That's a lovely little reference. But also you would go, oh, here's a nice, safe guy.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, you are nice, and there's a lot about you that is safe.
Right.
But in Vegas, I discovered, and even just hearing about you joining the Mile High Club, however low the experience might have been.
In the most rubbish way.
No, but dude, you realise, Matt, out of all the comedians on the circuit, let's take like 10,000 comedians.
Right.
I guarantee less than 1% of them have fucked someone on a plane.
But also, I probably fly more than most of them just because I live in America.
Fine, but irrespective of that.
I bet most comics in the UK have more dirtbag stories than I do.
Maybe, but here's the difference. You have like, whilst yours might be more individual and smaller in number, it seems like they're more classy. Like you've done better shit fewer times. Does that make sense?
That's lovely, and it's the first time attempting to have sex in a Southwest toilet has ever been described as classy.
I mean, well... and now you get the measure of what kind of man I am.
Oh, ambassador, why you doing to spoil me?
You spoil me with this bathroom piss-smelling anus. Right. I love it, yeah.
Hike up my ball gown and get on in there. And then help yourself to the free pretzels.
That would be nice on the way out. If they just hand you a little snack like, you did great. Just gives you a little pat. I had sex on a plane once as well.
Go on. Which was it? Did you do it the proper way and have like a long haul flight and a bit?
It was a long haul flight.
Right.
It was back. I did a gap year in New Zealand when I was 18 to 19.
Okay.
I went out there and I taught PE, phys ed in a school, and I was on a radio station, a dance music radio station. I started DJing at clubs. It was a really fun trip.
Okay.
Fun year.
Did that feel like a sort of like turn 18 and like really sort of find yourself kind of trip?
I don't think I have started to truly find myself until the last year of my life.
Okay.
And now I'm starting to, across the board, in my comedy, my personal life, my relationship, even in my work, I think whilst I've been doing a lot of good things, and I've done a lot of, if I look back at the course of my life, I'd be very proud of the crazy, wonderful, hardcore, interesting, difficult experiences that I've conquered or achieved. However, never being truly comfortable with myself, and it's only in this last year that's happened. But it was more a case of I had my heart broken in New Zealand. I fell madly in love with a Maori chick out there. We were together for a long time. She broke my heart just before I was leaving, was like, see you later, I can't do this, can't do that. I was like, this. Floods of tears, like really bad. And I got on this flight, and it was a Air New Zealand flight, and on the first leg of the journey, we stopped in LA. Right. But it was like 2, and like we had a stopover.
Okay, yep. So it's like that flight is about sort of 16 hours to LA, 15, 16 hours to LA, and then another like 11 hours to
Well, back
London.
then it was actually another 12. The total flying time was about 25, 26 hours.
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah, because it was just slower then. The planes weren't as high speed.
It was 14 from Auckland, and then another 12 or 13 from LA.
Okay.
So on the first flight, I was sat next to randos. I had a nice chat. I read my book, blah, 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 blah. At LA, we stopped for a bit, and I started talking to this girl, young 18, 19, just done a gap year in New Zealand. She was at South Island.
So similar place to you.
Absolutely. And we talked. She was very sexy. She had these cute little glasses, but she was like a sexy geek kind of thing. And we were talking about things. And then we got on the flight, and we were sat next to each other. It was very coincidental. And we were sat at the back, and we were like, oh, great. This is wonderful. We were right by the toilets at the very back in that last partition. So we didn't have couldn't put our seats back. It was a little bit like...
Oh, yeah.
We're sat next to these two middle-aged women in their 50s, right? We start the flight, we're talking, and immediately she's like, hey, you want to watch a movie at the same time together? Let's put it on and share headphones or whatever we're going to... I'm like, or whatever, put it at the same time. And I was like, yeah, let's do that.
In fact, back then it probably wasn't even on demand, so you just be like, which of the six channels are we going to do?
It was like that, yeah. It was 100%. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we start watching whatever... I can't remember what the fucking movie was. Right. Who knows? It was some dog shit. But we start watching it, and then at some point she goes, oh, do you want to share... Do you want a blanket as well like that? I'm like, oh, okay. So she puts the armrest up, she puts the blanket, and we put the blanket over our legs. And I'm like, I feel like I should just try a little bit. Because we were flirting outrageously, blah, 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 blah. The two older ladies thought we were boyfriend and girlfriend. They're going, oh, you're such a sweet couple. And we just laughed about it. And then we're kind of like, well, And I kind of put my hand, down by my sides, and it was like my finger. That.
Right. I love that. Yeah.
That tentative teenage touch, where you're like.
I mean, that's still even when you're older, but those little sort of just testing the waters with just like a little pinky finger and just go like, hang on, is there pressure back?
I love that shit.
Where is that an accidental touch, or is okay, I'm just going to hold my hand there for a little bit longer just to see if she also puts her hand there for a little bit longer and then see.
That's my favorite thing I miss about being young. Right. The fact that a touch on the outside of your pinky finger against the side of a woman's thigh is enough to be like, we might fuck. It's so exciting.
I don't even think that's a young thing. I think because that isn't the levels and the situation has changed. But even as you get older, there is something exciting about the early stages of any relationship where you're just where you're both feeling each other out to kind of
tentative tactility.
With hindsight that both of you had feelings for each other, but at the time you're taking that little risk of just kind of okay, I'm going to put myself out there a little bit and see if it's reciprocated, and then they put themselves out a little bit and then see if it's reciprocated. And
that's
it's just
consent for me. That was always consent for me as a young man, was to kind of be like a little brush or you kiss someone on the cheek or you give them a little hug, and if there's a response, then you go, and if there's a sort of, if she moved her leg slightly, I would have been like, oh, shit, bring my hands up and be like, okay, cool, I'm not going to try that anymore. Anyway, she kind of moved her leg into my hand, then her hand comes down, touches my hand, then she just took my hand and put it on her leg, and I'm like, all right, well, this is happening.
Right.
This is fucking going. The lights had gone down in the airplane. It was the night time on the airplane, so everyone was kind of starting to see. These two old bros next to us, they'd had fucking 3 or 4 white wine spritzers.
So they're out.
They're passed out to fuck. And eventually
they've watched Shirley Valentine, had a cry, and then gone.
She bangs her hand on my crotch, starts jerking my dick, puts her hand down.
Right.
I start playing with her pussy, and after a little bit, I'm like, I just say to her, I lean in and I go, we can't do this here. We can't do this here. And she's like, you're right. And she goes, and I go, let's go to the toilets. Go in this first cubicle on the left, and I'll meet you there. I'll give you 3 taps, and I'll come in 4 minutes. She's like, okay. So she goes to the restroom. And wait 4 minutes. I'm fucking just...
Yep.
And then I get there, knock, and I go inside. And we had the shortest, most intense sex.
Right.
But she came and I came. It was fucking awesome. Because there was all the the way that you're not excited by we shouldn't be doing this, I can get incredibly aroused we shouldn't be doing this.
But also you had... It's also a very different situation because you had sort of... a good few hours of
6 hours. We had 6 hours of
build-up, of mental
flirting.
mental and physical build-up, and it's the first time you ever met, and it's that frizzle of a chat. Whereas this was a long-term relationship where we'd been like,
this was a save the relationship fuck on a plane.
It wasn't even a save the. It was more of hey, you know what would be fun right now? We joked about it the night before when we were drinking, and then we're like, should we do it? And then we got in and we're like, this is ridiculous. It was much more of it. It wasn't like a sort of. For you, it felt like that was the peak of 6 hours worth of solid build-up.
It was amazing. We had quick sex, came back, got into the seats. She put her head on my shoulder and fell asleep because she was just happy and done and see you later. I fucking ordered another double whiskey and drank that, and I watched the rest of the movie, and then I read my book. It was Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist I was reading, and I read the end of that. And then we got off, and because we both I had a New Zealand phone numbers for the last year, but we were going to go back to our English ones. I was like, let's just do emails so we can blah, blah, blah. And I think we might have emailed once, or maybe never.
It was just a
I don't know
happy
who she
memory.
is. I don't know where she is. I'd love to know what her life is. I'd love to know what became of that woman.
Well, hopefully she sees that as an equally happy, fun memory.
Great.
Sounds like it would have been.
Oh, she's definitely told people when she's drunk in a pub one night, just like, this one time I fucked a stranger on a second leg of a flight from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Great.
Fell asleep on him, never saw him again.
It was wonderful.
Great.
I like naughty things like that. But there's also something to be said for the, now, there's something to be said for those wonderful, I've always mocked, I think, and this is where I want to pick your brains, because you seemingly, at least aesthetically, at least in the way that you carry yourself, are a guy who does nice things. You're the nice guy. Like, if I wanted to go on a picnic with a couple, I'd be like, well, Matt and his girlfriend would love a picnic, I imagine.
I mean, I take that as a compliment, I think.
Yeah, it means that you're the guy that I would hit up to do nice stuff.
Okay. Because
it's like, who would be up for doing that? You're an activity guy. You're literally every day in Vegas like, okay, this morning we're going to the Mob Museum. Who's on? Who's on board?
Well, that's also partly... I'm less of that when I'm in LA or when I'm home, but I do like to... If you're on the road for like Vegas, that run is... You're in the same hotel for 8 days.
And it smells like old people farts and cigarettes.
Well, because Vegas
that
does.
much great stuff to do there unless you like gambling or drinking.
Well, that's the thing. And you've given up drinking, and I am not... I don't have the gambling gene. It just doesn't do it for me. It just annoys me. So if you're not a gambler and, there's only so much partying you can do and still... Again, like late 30s, I think it might... Thinking back to like the Edinburgh Festival when I was in my 20s, you could drink till 4 or 5 in the morning, have 3 hours sleep and be up to flyer at 10 in the morning. Yeah. But I can't do that now. My body won't let me do that. I mean, you've got to do 2 shows a night and it's for the Comedy Cellar. So you're like, I don't want to screw these gigs up because I value them and I value them.
One of the best comedy clubs in the world, and I want to make sure I do it.
Exactly. I don't want word getting back to Esty that I showed up like hungover and steaming and like. So you're like, no, I'm going to be sensible about this.
Yeah.
I'll have a drink in the evening, but I'm not going to fuck myself up.
I mean, I told her about you having sex in the toilets backstage.
Right, and she'd be like, good for him.
She'd be like, you got to try it. I mean, they discussed it.
She's like, well, as long as he gets some funny material out of it and does it in my club, great.
I didn't tell her it was with me, but that's.
Oh yeah, we should have told the listeners and viewers that that was. Anyway, it was... But back to Oakland, what else are you going to do?
It was magical.
You've got to occupy your time, which brings me back to Vegas. You're there for 7 days.
Do you think you're a man who, when you do your comedy, because your comedy is, again, like you as a person, which I'm learning as the more I get to know you, you are a nice juxtaposition of different things. Right. I don't think that the nice guy presentation that you have externally is fake in any way. It's 100% you are just like a nice dude who's just generally like, hey, I'm a nice guy and I want to treat people with respect and I want to be nice and I want to do nice things.
I mean, I try to. I'm sure there's people who would have the opposite view of me, but
there is also another side that's a little more rock and roll, that's a little more hidden. Is that the same with your when you write comedy? Do you use that as a trope? Because people will immediately, as soon as you walk on stage, go, well, he's just going to be the straight-laced, vanilla nice guy.
You definitely have... Like, Alonzo Bowden would say that about me, because we gigged together quite a lot back in the day, and he would tell people, like, yeah, Kirshen, like, he's insulted you and you don't even realize it.
Oh, yeah. You can, and also some of your material can get quite dark as well.
Well, I definitely, particularly in America, I have stuff where I've done gigs where I finished with sort of 5 minutes of like a set of sex jokes and then a joke with the word cunt in it, and then have people come up afterwards and go like, I like how you didn't use profanity. I like like it's just because it just, I don't know, just coming from this face and this accent, somehow that reads very differently.
That's the accent in a big way as well
in America, which is a thing I like. You know what else I like? And when you're talking about preconceptions, and I've talked about this before, one of the things I really like about gigging in America is actually how few preconceptions people have about me when I'm on stage. Okay. In a way that, obviously I walk on as a Brit and I've got this face, and that's like a couple of...
I've got this face.
I look like this. I've got... and also I look young. Like I'm in my late 30s now. I can easily pass for like 20s. Absolutely.
If you're playing age, I'd say, is like 21, 22.
Like, unless
to
you know
about
just like the grey
26.
hair, and there are some like there's a bit of wrinkling.
You could do a Matt LeBlanc and just dye that.
Right, and it's but I started in my early 20s and I looked like a teenager. I looked like a schoolboy. But you know, you've got those broad preconceptions when I walk on stage in America, where people are like, all right, he's English or whatever, and he's like this English gentleman, whatever Americans think I am when they hear this voice. But compared to
a murderer,
right,
stone cold murderer.
Exactly, he runs an evil empire. He lives in a volcano. You know, all the normal things you think of when you hear this voice.
Why do they all think we're villains?
Because we play it well. But but it's a very broad stereotype. Whereas when I gig in Britain and they hear this voice, although my accent's now screwed up because I've lived in America for too long, but particularly before I lived in America,
sure,
you'd know this as well. Britain is very region-centric, class-centric.
Absolutely.
It's when you open your mouth in Britain anywhere, people have you drilled down to not even a town, like an area of a town.
Oh, you're a posh southern twat as soon as you open your mouth.
Right. Like
I'm a fucking London wide boy. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
and this person is like working class Manchester or whatever. You know,
there's a bit of that here though as well, isn't it? People go like, "Oh, come on, they're from Wisconsin, they're from the Midwest."
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice now.
But they're still pretty broad stereotypes. You know, just think about accents barely change in California. There's a slight difference, or even all the way up the West Coast. There's a slight difference between San Diego and Seattle, but barely. Not much of a difference in accent.
And that's just because we're British and we don't hear it as clear, and whereas an American would hear a vast difference in those accents.
No, there are some specific accents. You know, there's the sort of Orange County accent that you can tell. Also, the Beach Bum accent. And there's
sure. Yeah,
sort of there are various little Bay Area accents that you can pick out, and I'm sure linguists can pick out more accurately.
Yeah.
But I think it's a product of where people migrated. You know, they slowly moved across America, and then by the time they came to the West Coast, they'd all come from various mixed up pools, and then they just spread out along there. Mm-hmm. So there isn't really the sense of the really drilled in identity. And also, America isn't class centric in the same way Britain is.
Oh,
like there are classes, you know, there's like, oh, this guy's kind of preppy, this person's kind of blue collar, whatever, but nothing like it is in Britain.
In the UK, even though there is a lot of racism there, I was talking about this on the previous podcast, we very much separate each other out based on class and earning and, you know, what fucking tax bracket you're in.
Yeah, and racism's always there, but
it's more about what's the colour of your skin, what's your cultural background. That's how we're going to segregate people out.
Yeah, and racism is there and has always been there in Britain, but it is more, like Gina Yashere has a line about like moving to her family moving to Britain, like somewhere with bad weather and subtle racism. But I love that phrase, subtle racism, of like, it's there, it absolutely is in society, and it does dictate society in the way it always does, but it's kind of hidden, it's under the current. Where
yeah.
A thing that blew American friends of mine's minds is that, or often really surprises them in Britain, is that class and wealth are separate entities. Mm-hmm. Completely, like you can have someone who's upper class and broke.
Yeah.
And you can have someone who is a multi-millionaire but will never be considered anything other than upper middle class.
Well, there you go. That's because nouveau riche, you get the old Essex boy who sold his business for 7 million and has invested well, but he's still like, fucking come on, Gary, like that. He's walking around with a Rolex.
Yeah, and it's about where you came
from.
He's
got no class, but he's wealthy as fuck.
And upper class, even specifically, is like, titled. You could. It's about where you can trace your ancestry to.
Absolutely.
And so,
you know, he's a lord. Yes, he's a lord, yeah.
So like Richard
hasn't got a penny to rub
So sort of
together,
explaining to people that like Richard Branson, for example, would not be considered upper class in Britain.
No.
He's the 1% of the 1%, but he's not upper class because he's not descended from a baron.
Yeah.
Or an earl. Although I think his parents were someone, but they're like, it's even explaining to people, this one really surprised a friend of mine, that the Queen is not considered to be the poshest person in Britain. Mm-hmm, she's not the most upper class person in Britain.
I mean, if you actually get her on a one-on-one conversation, she's just like, fucking hell, mate, you know what? Like, this whole monarchy business.
But, like, her family isn't, like, the oldest and most revered family in Britain.
Right.
And there are people who would consider themselves to be posher than the Queen.
And
And that blew some American friends of mine's minds.
Yeah.
Because that's how class-centric and historically segregated Britain can be.
In this country, you can buy yourself a position.
Right, because it's a much newer country, and that system is was put into place later. And obviously, America does have things like that. You know, you've got the sort of East Coast, you the Hamptons and so on, and those sort of East Coast historical families and prep school families and so on. But it's not the same. And also, people don't characterize you in the same way.
Right.
And particularly as a foreigner, where they can't really... Like, to most Americans, we sound pretty much the same. And even me and I'd sound the same as someone like Jason Manford, who's from Manchester, or Kevin Bridges, who's from Glasgow.
Or apparently we sound like Australians.
Well, yeah, I very much...
to every fucking American I speak
Exactly. I got into a disagreement once in the security line in an airport. Someone thought I barged in front of her when I hadn't, or she pushed in front of me, and I can't remember, like, glared at, whatever it was. Someone was being a dick to me, and you can't convince me that it wasn't their fault. But anyway, as we were leaving that area, she went, "You Australian dick," or something like that. And I was like, yeah, blame that on that country.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah, fuck you from all of Australia.
Dickhead Sheila.
Yeah, everyone in Australia thinks you're... Anyway.
I got fed up every time I get in a Lyft or an Uber out here. They're always like, oh, where in Australia are you from?
Yep.
And I've given up just fucking saying London now. I just go, yeah, Sydney. Yeah. And they're like, oh, what do you do there? A lot of raping and murdering, mostly. Bit of pedophilia. But yeah, that's like pretty big in Australia right now. Just give them a bad name. Fuck it. If you're gonna put that on me, I'm gonna go full hog.
Nothing like the Brits who are blameless.
Oh no, but you know what? Like the Brits, I mean, they're amazing people, aren't they? Like they sent all the criminals over to Australia, and that's why we are so awful. I killed 7 kids last week. You know what I mean? Just got in there. But I mean, the thing is that you know what that is because we are not posh. If we, like, I think there's people in England who go, well, you're reasonably well spoken. You've got a little RP going on every now and then, but it has to be put upon. Whereas in America,
I'm solidly middle class in Britain. Like to a Brit, I'm middle class.
Same. I mean, working middle class, I guess. Okay. But I also think in America, unless because they have, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I've experienced so far is there's only 2 types of British people to Americans.
Right.
There's Guy Ritchie movie, Jason Statham, Vinnie Jones. I'm like from London. Right. I'm from the UK. And even like Mancunians would be part of that. I'm fucking Manchester, man. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, it's one of those Manchester Cockneys.
Do you know what I mean? Literally, you're either like a rough and ready fucking, do you know what I mean? Let's go fucking doing it. You know
you're Jeeves and Worcester.
Or you're literally like, oh, I'm terribly sorry. I'm Hugh Grant and I'm ever so silly. And that's who I am, unfortunately. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
They're the 2 categories.
That's it.
And it's quite, but in a way, it's quite freeing to walk on stage in America and not have those preconceptions or have such a broad brush stereotype that you can either work with or against.
Absolutely. Do we do the same thing to Americans? Because I don't think we do the same thing in terms of...
I think Brits... Well, it's hard
we don't go, there's only 2 types of Americans. Because, first of all, I don't know what a posh American sounds like.
I think we do, though. When Brits do American accents, it's normally one of, or quite often, a weird, monstrous marriage of New York and Alabama.
Okay.
Like, it's the 2 together. It's like one of those...
See, I thought it was just, in the way that they put us into one of 2 class categories, either poor working class Jason Statham on the transporter, or... Hello, my name's Hugh Grant, and I'm ever so posh.
Yeah, no, I think...
We do I thought we just do regional, that we go, well, all Americans are either, hey, man, I'm from the West Coast.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's the 3rd category.
You know, unbelievable, man, I'm from Texas, and I like to fuck my cousin. Or we do, hey, New York City.
That's exactly it.
And that's it.
Those are the 3 Americans, and if you ask someone to do an American accent, in Britain, it would normally be some sort of abortion of those 3.
I remember the first time I heard a Minnesota accent.
Oh, it's a treat.
I was like, what is this?
Or like any of that region, or like North Dakota. I mean, like Fargo, if you've seen that.
Yes.
That's real.
Oh, it almost sounds Canadian a little bit, doesn't it?
But that's also like if you... What about in Britain? The first time I did gigs in the West Country. And got the full like farmer/pirate accent at me, just from a guy on the street who was giving me directions.
Yeah. Ah, you want to take walk down that way, and you want to take down there. Yeah,
you got Manchester.
Have I got Manchester? No. All right. What's the Midlands? Let's get like a black country. Oh, absolutely, yeah, black country.
Well, that's
you
a
want
treat
to
of an accent as
You want
well.
to go down the road and that.
But the thing, the ridiculous thing about Britain is you can go 30 miles east or west and
sound
have
completely fucking
wildly different accents.
Yeah, we crammed it in. But that's because everyone went through the UK. Everyone, for some reason, Romans, Greeks, Vikings, Celts, everyone went through this tiny fucking island.
Yeah.
Isn't that impressive? Well, we're pretty good.
Yeah, and then it's sort of affected by who you can see by like hair color and intonation
who did the most fucking.
Yeah, which tribe fucked the most in this region.
There you go.
And you go like, all right, York and East Scotland is like, all right, that's Vikings.
I love when people go to Ireland.
And
everyone thinks Irish. They go, well, Irish, red hair like the Scots, and light eyes and freckles and I'm from Ireland. How's it going there? But if you go to like the west coast of Ireland, that's where all the Spaniards landed.
Okay.
And they fucked the shit out of people over there. So they went over there, took all the hot women back to fucking Spain, which is why when you go to those parts of the country, you're like, oh, wow, everyone here is very attractive. They took all the beautiful women. Same in Scandinavian countries, you know what I mean? Scandinavia, Norway, like all of that, Sweden, etc. While the women are hot, because they stole all the fucking hotties, put them on a boat, took them back, along with all the gold they pillaged and stole from the churches. But they did a lot of fucking. So if you go to the west coast of Ireland, all the women are there are like dark hair, gorgeous, like deep green eyes. Like they're very fucking sexy people. But they don't look Irish in the slightest.
I hadn't really thought about the different West country and West.
It's crazy. It's quite literally, again, in like just with Ireland, you go, well, if you go to any four of the points of it,
right,
you can see the history of the last 300-400 years.
And then you can kind of see that in Britain and America. Like Boston and Liverpool are really similar cities. And that's because the Irish people who left during the famine, if they went west, they ended up in Boston. If they went east, they ended up in Liverpool. And they're incredibly similar cities.
Yeah.
Both in attitude and makeup and religion and everything there.
Yeah. And in terms of criminality,
Right, exactly.
Whitey Bulger.
Let's get both of us cancelled right now. Let's get all of Liverpool on us.
I think that's all right. That's fine, isn't it? I'm not like Liverpool is not crying out for Jeff Leach solo gigs right now. Boston, I wouldn't want to piss off Boston. That's a great comedy city.
It is.
Got history there, isn't it?
But also like Liverpool, it's very much like they like their own.
Right.
They're much more about
hometown heroes, Bill Burr's, Louis C.K.'s, that kind of vibe. They're like all about like.
Yeah, they're very, and Liverpool's the same. It's like they will.
The Beatles.
You've got to fight to prove yourself as like. Why would we want someone who's not from Liverpool to entertain us? Because we've already got what we need here.
Also, working class boys. They're all about like working class boys.
Right. Like blue collar votes for the left wing party, but quite conservative.
Who's your core demographic? Do you have? I'm sure you don't like write materials for a specific type of audience, but you must at this point have gone, oh, these are the people that really like what I do.
Well, I think it's changed over the years because like when I did Last Comic Standing, for example, and I was this face a decade ago, I was getting MySpace messages mostly from like earnest teenage girls and middle-aged gay men. Like that was my demographic.
Yes, that's the best demographic.
That's what I had then, but it's changed. And then I do this science podcast, and I've got like a foot in that world. So I get people who found me through that. So the sort of like nerdy / thinky subculture. Sometimes
I got a lot of that through the gaming because of my gaming background.
Then there's.
And by the way, I gotta say, gaming, like anyone who's remotely fucking geeky and is into what you do, they are the best audience to have on board.
Oh.
Because when you release shit or when they like you, they go, oh, I saw this guy on stage. First of all, they know how to use the internet. They're very tech savvy. So immediately they're on their phones before they've even left the show. Liked you on every social media. They found your podcast. They've left a message on your YouTube video. Do you know what I mean?
They get themselves organized. We did a tour of Australia at the beginning of this year, and a bunch of people came out, and it was great. They're just doing the podcast, but again, they've sort of got themselves organized. They write in with our listeners are nuts because they're brilliant because we'll get stuff wildly wrong, and then we'll get like a professor of fluid dynamics write in and go like, actually, this is how a fart cloud disseminates in a room or whatever. And you're like, okay, thank you, professor. I don't know why you are wasting your valuable lab time.
Even professors need to listen to podcasts, man.
They really do.
This is what another thing is. We always again. This is preconceptions. Just because someone is in the world of science or history or biology, chemistry, whatever it happens to be, or politics, we assume that's all that they're concerned about. But I guarantee, if your job is academia, either lecturing, academia, or research, active research, you spend so much time staring at a screen, sitting in a lab, sitting in your office. You gotta be jerking off pretty regularly, and you gotta find ways to fucking escape that world every now and then.
Well, there's also
podcasts and porn.
When people that misconceived notion, when people that sort of lazy comedy trope of when they kind of the Comic-Con or the science conferences and go oh, it's a whole lot of nerds who can't get laid. They are all fucking. They're fucking each other.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Your Comic-Cons, your science conferences, or whatever. There is weird nerd sex going on every night.
And that's why cosplay girls are now notable celebrities around the world.
But there is some creative filth going on between smart people at these conferences.
Oh, if you haven't fucked a gender-bending Mario, Super Mario brother, then you haven't lived. Do you know what I mean? With the dungarees the other way around, so the flap opens up and you're presented with what you need.
Right, and then, they shrink down, they
take
expand.
some mushrooms, shit goes crazy.
They disappear down pipes.
I know it's a star, not a mushroom, but whatever, you get the idea. And at the end... They
reach up and punch things.
She pulls the moustache off and go, "It's me!"
Right.
Yeah.
And then the princess always escapes. It's...
I'm very tapped into the geek world.
Right.
And I'm very passionate about it. I've always been of the opinion that just because you like geeky shit, whether it's I don't know if you can say, you can't see them on the screen, but all my little toys and collectibles up there and my...
Oh yeah, you've got a fair few little...
All my artwork from various video games and comic book heroes and stuff like that. We've got Game of Thrones, fucking Harley Quinn, Assassin's Creed, Fallout, all of that stuff going on up there. Now, because of those... people would go, oh, okay, well then you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way. I'm like, no. That's not how it is. This is like the video game industry in general as well. For years, people have just thought it's 11-year-old boys playing video games, Cheeto dust, jerking off their basement. Don't get me wrong. There's still plenty of that going on.
Yeah. And God bless them, and I'm glad they've got that outlet. And
fuck yeah. And everyone needs a way to find creativity and find connection. And whether it's sitting on a headset at home talking to friends in Korea that you play StarCraft with, or if it's, going out to the park and kicking a ball around, it doesn't matter. You're connected with people.
Yeah.
But for every one of those people, within the same world, there's absolutely some smoking hot cosplay chick who also has a biochemist degree from Harvard, and she organizes sex parties on the weekend with her super hot boyfriend who works in marketing and advertising at Square Enix.
Well, the other thing, when people are I'm not particularly in the gaming world. My gaming ability and knowledge stopped around the Sega Mega Drive. The Sega Mega Drive was Genesis as it is in America, was my last console, and that's 20 years ago?
Oh yeah, that's pretty fucking old, yeah.
25 years ago, maybe.
Still great though.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But that was and then they put the joysticks on the pads, and I was like, that's too many things. I'm done.
You're done.
But
he's not a multitasker.
But when people are these internet communities are isolating people, I think there is some truth. I think that there can be isolating effects where people withdraw from society because they get too into that world, and I think also there are all the dangers of you get too into specific bubbles, which
subcultures,
which can, if it's the wrong bubble, lead to various forms of radicalization or whatever, and negative reinforcement of bad ideas. Mm-hmm. That absolutely exists. But for
you start out just looking at hot cosplay chicks, having a little jerk off, and by the end of it, you're watching, Al Qaeda training videos,
marching with tiki torches or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And that absolutely exists. But also, for as much as that, when they're like, oh, is internet time causing kids to withdraw from society? For as much as that, think about the number of kids who have niche interests or varying sexualities or gender identities,
who never had an outlet to explore those.
If you grew up in a New York or San Francisco or London, whatever, you're golden. But if you grew up in a small village somewhere and you're the only kid in your school who loves
Naruto,
or might be bisexual, or likes death metal or whatever the fuck, and you feeling really isolated, but then you can go on the internet and find 1,000 other only kids in their town, and suddenly you've got a massive community. That's amazing.
Metalhead Naruto fan 763.
Exactly.
You find here on a forum, and you're like, oh my god, we're the same person.
Exactly, and suddenly you don't feel like you're this weird isolated kid. You've got your community, and that's awesome.
And then you're sending nudes over the internet to the person, and you have a relationship for 2 years, and then you end up on an episode of Catfish,
and then they leak, and you realize you've been talking to
a 47-year-old man from Minnesota.
But at least that 47-year-old guy brought you some brief connection.
Yeah. I had to recount my early use of the internet. Do you ever remember AOL chat, first of all? AOL chat was a fucking...
I never did that, but I did IRC chat.
Okay. Yeah.
So same deal.
But you were still like age stats location, right? Age sex location, ASL. Let's do it. Let's hit the
I tell you what I did, and I'm not proud of this at all. And to their credit, I constantly ended up looking the dick.
Right.
I was like young, earnest, but also very immature teenage atheist, and I would go on the Christian forums and troll, but really ineffectually.
You trolled before trolling was a troll thing.
So like I remember like I'd go on some of these forums and like, Jesus was a fucking or whatever, like and to their credit and to my shame, across the board, they nearly to a person responded with nothing but grace and calm. Like,
hey, I'm sorry you feel that way, and maybe the grace of God could bring you out. Yeah, that place
and what you did there is sort of fairly childish, but I hope you can find some comfort one day in the Lord like we do.
Yeah, they don't do that now. I don't know if you've met Westboro.
No, now it'd be like, fuck you back. But like, to their
you're gonna burn in hell, son.
To their eternal credit and to my eternal shame, it was almost exclusive that I was like, and then they would reply like my son, my child.
I just used to have sex text. Like, so like, it would be like sex text, but it was basically, we used to call it like, chat sex.
Right.
So I go on a thing called Alamac Chat. That was the big one for me. I found this forum called Alamac Chat. I wonder if it's still in existence.
What does Alamac stand for?
No idea. I have no idea. It was just a chat place. It was just a forum with loads of different rooms. And you go into various rooms, and we'd be in there every day. Like, I would be on there. I'd come home from school and jump on there and try and be on there as much as possible.
Right.
And I had relationships, I had friendships, I had groups of people, and I 100% would set up I became moderator on various like bits, and I would be able to set up private rooms. So I would set up private rooms with a girl I liked, blah, blah, blah. I'd never seen her. I didn't know if she was that. And I would end up like either sending, when that was possible to send pictures eventually, when we got to the MySpace era, that kind of thing. But before that, I'd have sex chat, like sex talk with girls.
Yeah.
And I'd be a 14-year-old boy, and I'd be going, yeah, like, oh yeah, my penis is really hard. Oh, my cock's hard now. But I learned how to speak dirty that way. That's how I learned how to do dirty talk.
So do you think when you like got your stuff together to actually have in-person relationships, it helped you?
It gave me the being comfortable about sexual dialogue.
Okay.
But what I also have now realized as a 35-year-old man is there is no way in hell I was talking to a 15-year-old girl when I was a 14-year-old boy. She was 100% a 53-year-old dude from fucking Illinois just going, yeah, this 14-year-old boy, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
100%.
And I'm torn on this because when you were actually underage.
You're welcome, Lawrence.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Steve. I know you guys still follow me.
When you were actually underage as well, like, okay, that's grubby, that's bullshit. Particularly, how old were you claiming to be 15? Were you being honest about both your gender and age? Okay.
Yeah. I was always honest about, if I was a 15-year-old boy, I was like 15, male, London.
Then that is grubby. Then that's like what that's, if that really is then like a sort of, which it almost certainly was.
I might be wrong. Some of them might not have been fake.
Maybe, because, there are also, if there were 14, 15-year-old guys who were into that, there are also 14, 15-year-old women who are into that, and then...
But the way they spoke...
Or girls, rather.
Upon reflection.
Yeah.
The way they typed and spoke through the written form, there was no way...
No, because also you can, with hindsight as an adult, you're looking back and going like, oh, women don't think about their bodies that way and talk about their bodies that way.
Absolutely not.
And yeah, it's the language of it's the male language of the male gaze that is applied to women. Yeah.
Dude, I was 100% fucking pedo porn for a lot of guys, I reckon.
Or best case scenario, it was a guy, but it was a guy roughly your age.
Yeah.
Which is also possible. There was
unlikely.
Probably
Again, unlikely.
Yeah.
I was groomed by a pedophile at my school.
Okay.
A teacher, Mr. King, he was called, old Scottish bloke, and taught Latin. All the pedophiles from all my schools when I was a kid all taught Latin. There was something about
now what the one at our school, what subject he might have been
Latin or history. It's always Latin or history because they look at it and they go, "Well, the Greeks had it right, having a young boy around at all
something
times."
about that. He did have. Was it Latin? Like it might have been.
Oh yeah, bunch of pedos. Now when I meet
or
someone
history.
and go, "Well, I speak Latin," I go, "All right, keep away from my children."
Yeah.
But I realized that even though I was being groomed in real life, I was actively grooming myself online. I was putting myself out there like a little slut. I was a 15-year-old.
But it's the same thing. You're getting that reinforcement, and that goes back to, like I say, like the good side of online for kids, and then the bad side because it is that positive reinforcement, and you get to the same thing that makes people spiral down those hate spirals is they start saying things, and then they get other people kind of going, yeah, that's right, and it gives you that encouragement, and that gives you that little spike of endorphins or whatever, and and you get a little bit more excited about how you're being received, and then
Absolutely.
you
it validates you. It validates you a little bit.
Absolutely. And particularly if you're an awkward... Well, I would say if you're an awkward teenager, every teenager is awkward to some degree or another.
Sure.
Like there isn't such...
I was a depressed teenager with a little bit of loneliness and some, some bullying at school and stuff like that. So,
But also, I think there is no such thing as a fully confident teenager is weird. Like there's something...
What about that kid we met at... she wasn't up the day you went there. We went down a couple of days later to Ferguson's. A 7-year-old girl. I won't say her name because but there was a young lady there and a young kid, and her dad. I know her dad. He's a cool dude. He's like a DJ and he's part of the community. And this little 7-year-old not only was just like a beautiful little child, she's got his lovely long hair and these piercing bright blue eyes, and like her mum is a rock and roll chick covered in tattoos, and her dad is like a cool dude with tat, and they're very like cool and not hippie but kind of hey man, blah,
cool
blah.
Parents, right?
Absolutely. He was the guy DJing when we went to that club. He was the guy who was DJing that night.
Okay.
So she's 7 and she DJs vinyl, not just vinyl but 45-inch records.
Okay.
She plays like her favorite groups are like Prince and people like that.
Yeah.
And she's the most eloquent, wonderful little kid. And I was just like
what?
Your life seems more put together than mine is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is immensely frustrating.
Yeah.
But also I was like mesmerized. I was like, if I have a daughter one day that is half as cool as you, I'm going to be so happy. Oh, look at me slapping the mic. I'm going to be so happy.
Yeah.
But nowadays, kids grow up more, and they're told to grow up. They're forced to grow up. There's an element of that. Social media has made them. This is why you see 16-year-old girls on Instagram doing poses and things like that.
But there's also...
Well, actually, I've never seen that. That's a lie. But whatever. Young women, 18, 19, presenting themselves as older and
also
lots of makeup
there's
and stuff.
There's an element of like kids have a natural facility with like filming themselves and the internet and social media and stuff like that.
It's dangerous. But I don't want my fucking daughter putting sexy photos on her Instagram page age 15, 16.
But also, yeah, absolutely, like the sexy photo. But the fact that they're at ease in front of the camera and everything, I think that's just a product of they grew up with it. Like that technology is normal to them.
Yeah.
In the same way that, when I was a kid, my mum struggled to set the video recorder, the VCR, and I was fine with it. I think
Sure.
it's just a generation shift to that. That's the new version of that.
You didn't have your dick in your hand when you were sorting out that. You weren't tapping the buttons to reprogram it with the tip of your...
Well, I was at first, but like I was a teenager.
You kept catching it in the little...
yeah, exactly. And then you got to wind it back. You know how it is. It gets chewed up. But it's... No, they have an ease that feels adult because it's something that people who are adults seem to need practice to do, like being a TV presenter or be like we were watching this it was like the kids version of one of those obstacle course shows that they do, like Wipeout or whatever it is,
American Ninja or whatever.
Exactly.
Warrior,
and it was the kid version of that.
Okay.
And they were doing the little talking head things, the little mini interviews.
They were the shoutcasters, like the newscasters, the cast.
It was the contestants, but they were doing the little talking head between the rounds.
Okay, cool.
and they were talking like seasoned, like they were media trained.
Yeah.
You know, they were just like, so we saw the course today, and when I saw the course today, I thought, oh, the stage 3 is going to be a challenge, but, you know, we gave it a go. And
you're like, you're fucking 7.
And one part of me was like, that's weirdly precocious, and you feel weirdly adult, and why are kids so adult? And then the other part is like, oh no, they just grow up with that as normal, so that's not an adult thing for them. It's not that they're weirdly adult, it's just this thing that we used to think of as being an adult thing isn't an adult thing now. They're still kids, they're still childish, it's just that's a skill that they grew up with as a natural thing. Whereas when we were older, only TV presenters who had trained and had years of practice in front of a camera would be able to talk naturally in front of a camera like that. But that's normal to them because they grew up with cameras around them.
And so YouTube era, I mean, there's now kids make their own content. They do their own shows. One half of that is great because it's nice to talk to youngsters who can express themselves or be eloquent.
Yeah.
And the other part of it, and this is maybe a bit of an old school regressive brain part of it, but having brought up someone else's child for many years, you go through this stage where it's fucked up. It's a fucked up way to look at the world. But as soon as you are protecting a child, which I was as a stepfather, a little part of my brain looks at every adult, male or female, and goes, are you a pedophile? Are you a pedophile? Are you a pedophile? There's a part of you that goes, you know, they hug your kid for too long, or they pick up your kid and put them on their knee and stuff. You're like, all right, you just being a dad or a mum, or are you like, wait, where's that hand go? You know what I mean? Like you watch everything. And there's part of me that I want to see kids be mature and eloquent.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to appear like adults because I feel like that makes them targets for fucking perverts.
Although if they're real pedophiles, then the more adult the kid is, the less interested they'd be.
You say that, but look at fucking Michael Jackson, right? The part of the relationship was that they felt they could have adult connections with infants or with children, with toddlers and small children. It was like, part of it was like, he thought he was a kid, and the way he talked, he would talk about adult things, but with a child, like, but yeah, we're just two people who love each other, you know, I love him and he loves me and he's just a kid, but I'm a kid in my brain. And like, no, you're a fucking pedophile, bro. And like, you can't, when I hear a kid speaking eloquently, it's still part of my brain going, isn't that adorable, this little kid's playing at being an adult? Not, wow, this 7-year-old is really mature, and I feel like we have a connection. Do you know what I mean? You're going like, but also, I think, a fucking child, dude.
But that is also a product of, again, the world we're in now, where everything gets amplified. You then get this false impression that there are sex offenders around every corner.
You know why? Because there fucking are, dude. This is why pornography upsets me so much now. You know, I talked about this with the last guest, Xander Corvus, right? So he's a porn actor, and we were talking about it, and I was like, why is 90% of what's available online now, especially on sites like Pornhub, which would be the first home for porn for most people?
Right.
So much of it is incestuous and barely 18, and teenage girl gets fucked by teacher or you know, or stepmom, stepson. It's like, it's incest and it's infantizing people. I don't like my girl to dress up as a schoolgirl. That doesn't do it for me, because when she does it, I'm like, I don't want to feel like I'm fucking a kid. That's not an arousing thing for me.
Did you ever gig with Trevor Crook back in the UK? Because he's got a lovely joke about like my girlfriend dressed up as a schoolgirl to surprise me. She thought she looked all sexy. I just saw a slow learner.
I like that. That's nice.
It's a great joke.
That's nice.
Yeah, that again, that's never. That as a thing has never done it for me. But also, I never want to like kink shame anyone. You never know where their particular, like, what has triggered that desire in someone. You know, and also there is a wild difference between things in the fantasy world and things in the real world. You know,
you're right.
You could, like, for example,
if you're both consenting adults and you want to try shit out, you want to dress up as an adult baby and be rocked to sleep whilst you suck on your girlfriend's
Well, that's
titty,
a perfect example, because that community, and again, that's not a kink that's ever like triggered anything in my brain, but for the people who it is, they have to deal with the fact that people then associate that with sort of pedophilic thoughts, and they're like, no, absolutely not. Yeah. I have no sexual attraction to someone who is actually under 18.
Sure.
I have a sexual attraction to mature adults.
I just want my mature adult girlfriend to pretend like she's a fucking child.
But they are very different things, and there is, I think, to the best of my knowledge, there is no documented correlation between people being into that sort of like little daddy whatever
I
play.
understand, yeah.
And
It's called DDLG.
right, and
Dominant daddy, little girl.
yeah, or the gender flip version of that. But like
Sure.
to the best of my knowledge, there's no correlation between people who like that and people who like actually like children. In fact, it's the opposite.
Matt Kirshen likes his girlfriend to call him daddy. It's confirmed. It's confirmed.
But again, role play's never done it for me.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I think I'm not a good
your
enough
girlfriend,
actor.
when I'm gonna play an audience member who is enjoying your stand-up performance so much that I have to touch my pussy whilst you do it?
Be like, well, what material was I doing? Which show was it?
Yeah.
It's
Would you ever do that? Imagine if your lady or a partner over the course of your history, if someone had said to you, I am so aroused when you're on stage performing. Like, I love seeing how sexy and commanding you are on stage, and it really does it for me. Matt, I want you to just start doing material at the end of the bed, and I'm going to lay on the bed and just play with myself for a bit. Would you write specific material for it?
Yeah, like, okay, yeah, let's do some crowd work.
No, but you start fucking shitting on her because she's heckling.
I would find that quite cringy, but if I knew it really... If that was the thing that really did it for her, then I would get over that cringiness. Because I think, if you're with someone who's
you do a type 5, yeah?
Right. But if you're with someone who, like, she's like, this is what's going to get me off, then you're like, then I would eventually, at least once I got over myself, get off on the fact that that's what's getting her off.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, the reciprocity of it. Like, that would do it for me. But fuck me, I would find that embarrassing at first.
You know what I love about this? We discovered that you're a giver. A giver on stage, a giver in this country, a giver in Southwest Airline toilets, and a giver in the bedroom.
That's where I find out that I get banned from the airline.
I love it.
Dear Mr. Kirshen.
Dear Mr. Kirshen.
It has come to our notice.
We heard you reciting material in one of our toilets.
Yes.
Unfortunately, audience members also left the toilet.
But in 2008...
2008. Was that when it was?
I think it must have been. I was just trying to work out when it was that I was dating her. So it would have been...
11 years ago.
It would have been somewhere... Yeah, it would have been... Yeah, about a decade ago.
Nice. Back when airplanes were still a bit dangerous.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? At any moment, you could have just crashed and died. That'd be an embarrassing way to fucking die, wouldn't it? Being bounced around inside of an airline toilet.
It's before I had TSA pre-check as well. So, I hadn't been verified in any way.
Nightmare.
Could have been any nightmare.
You'd be kicked out.
Monster.
Dude, I'm very grateful that you gave your time today.
I'm very grateful to come around. We had a great time in Vegas. It was, I'm glad we got to spend another hour.
Yeah, me too. It's been really lovely. And I do think there's what I already knew. I was already aware that you were a very funny comedian, a very skilled writer as well. I respect writers because
thanks, man.
It takes a lot of self-applied willpower and patience to get yourself down and knuckle down and do that work.
I don't know. For me, it's just that's what... Writing came far more naturally to me than performing.
Clearly, because you're writing for, one of the biggest comedy shows that have been on TV, Arrested Development, and writing for one of the biggest stars here in America, Jim Jeffries. So you've got to have hit a point.
But it took me much longer to learn how to be on stage and not look like a mess and
I'm just bigging you up, man. It's all right. You don't need to defend it. It's okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And you're very, very talented, but you're also incredibly talented on stage. I want everyone to come and see you.
Please.
What's the best ways for people to keep in contact with you to find you?
Well, the best way, I'm Matt Kirshen on...
Everything.
I think there's an underscore on Instagram, but I don't really do that much. But if you just
MATTKIRSHEN.
Yeah, if you just type English comedian Matt KI and bang the keyboard, Google will find me because it's a weird name.
There you go.
And then Probably Science is my podcast.
Okay, nice.
Where we go through the week in science news with comedians, and then
Probably
sometimes
Science on everything: Spotify,
it's on
iTunes,
all the places.
Google Play, SoundCloud, all that.
And then and then sometimes we have real scientists on to talk about what we got wrong.
Nice. So make sure you do that. Probably Science. Make sure you download the podcast, subscribe to it, hit that follow notification on all the platforms, and also check him out, Matt Kirshen at Matt Kirshen on Instagram, Twitter, and all those good things. And for live dates, website best to do it, or just follow you on the social media.
My website's actually down right now, but yeah, I tweet out stuff.
Yeah. Just check out Twitter. Thank you, brother.
Mate,
appreciate you. You're
thank
an absolute
you.
legend. Thank you for
Same,
coming
mate.
on. I wish you the greatest success, continued success, and thank you for joining me.
Cheers, mate. Bye.